Hi, little buddy. You made a big mess under there. I know, you don't care. I'm trying to fix a tractor, but there's a problem. People in the comments, they tell me all the time that I complain too much. And the irony is not lost on me. But they do have a point. You know, people have enough of their own problems. The last thing they want to do is listen to some goober on the internet drone on about his problems. But it's tough to find a balance. You know, I love fixing things. The more challenging, the better. It can be very satisfying. But it's still work. And a lot of times, work kind of sucks. You know, there's a lot of people who just pretend that their life is perfect all the time. And we used to call those people psychopaths. Now they call them influencers. I don't want to do that. I want my videos to reflect real life, warts and all. And it's pretty hard to keep your chin up and force a smile when you're chasing rodents out of a 35-year-old tractor. So he had two problems. First one was the gauges. They were just kind of randomly cutting out. That seems to have resolved itself. Sounds like maybe it's just a bad ground. Hard telling, I can't reproduce the problem. And then the other issue is the seat. This has a fancy Grommer, made in Germany, air ride seat. You're supposed to be able to pull this little lever here, and a little compressor should come on and raise the seat up on a pneumatic cylinder. He thinks the problem might be related to mice. I wonder how he got that idea. Could it possibly be the smell? The overwhelming ammonia smell of mouse pee? It is unbearable. And it's not like they pulled this tractor out of a fence row. They use this thing all the time, every day. I don't know how they can stand to even be in it. Not to mention, there's rodents literally running around everywhere, and there's remnants of a mouse house falling out of the bottom of the seat. Let's just take a look. Yep, I'd say the problem is mice. There goes a mouse. Oh, just ran away. I don't know, I guess it doesn't bother them. And why should it bother me? Anyway, let's see if we can fix it. It's not going to be fun. But we're not complaining, right? Alright, I think the seat is loose. Yes. Now, what do we do with it? Oh, God. Okay. Can I just take this whole thing out of here? It appears to be actively occupied. Oh, God. It's supposed to rain tonight for the first time in, I think, 7 weeks. We're actually in a severe drought. We're like 5 inches below normal for rainfall. Anyway, everybody's freaking out trying to get the last of the crops in, but there's actually nowhere to put them. So they had a record harvest, and it's at the lowest price in 8 years. So everybody's storing it. They don't want to sell it. They're hoping the price will go up. So everything is full. Well, I managed to suck out the bigger mouse house chunks. And you can see the problem here. They just chewed right through that cable. So that's, I think, the main power cable for that pump. There's no other electronics under here. So all we got to do is clip that back and splice in a new chunk of wire. We should be all set. Mice. Hate them. Where is Max? Sleeping on the job, I think. There we go. I made up this little jumper. We'll hook black to blue. Like so. And red to brown. Okay. Did I cross the wires? Kind of notorious for that. Looks okay. I think that's okay. Might tie it up a little bit just so it doesn't get caught in the scissor mechanism down here. We need to find whatever fuse or breaker powers that though, because I'm sure it's tripped. It's day 2 and I'm in a little bit better mood. It rained last night, which we really needed. That's good news. And this tractor seems to have fixed itself, which is excellent news. Still smells horrible in here, but it's not quite as eye-watering. I ripped off basically all of the interior panels trying to find the fuse box. Where would you put the fuse box? Well, if you were an engineer at the White New Idea Farm Equipment Company in the late 1980s, you would put the fuse box there, bolted on the bottom side of the cowling or the instrument panel or whatever you want to call it. It's actually not even a fuse box. It's just a bunch of breakers. You can't see them. You can't service them. If you take out this switch panel, you can just make out the very top of the studs on the breakers in there. But it doesn't really matter because somehow, sitting overnight, the breaker must have reset. Because if I turn on the key, like so, look at that. I don't know if it actually holds air pressure, but the pump runs. So that's more than we had before. I'm not 100% sure how this thing works. I don't think it's actually adjustable in height like a truck seat. I'm pretty sure the height is preset, and this adjustment here is just to compensate for the driver weight, so everybody sits at the same height. It seems kind of needlessly overcomplicated, you know, because Germany. Honestly, if it was mine, I would just cut this big rubber boot right off. because that's just asking for rodents to set up shop in here. You know, they usually won't build a nest and make a big mess like that if they're out in the open and exposed. They want to be inside of a nice, cozy, confined space, like that side cover over there. But I guess we better put it back like we found it, minus the rodents. Oh, God. I'm sure this seat is nice and comfortable to sit in, but it was not designed to be serviced, at least not in the tractor. Oh, come on. Oh, this has got to be one of the worst things I've ever worked on. There. God. How are you supposed to fit in here to tighten up these bolts? Somebody tell me. I do not know. Okay. Oh, man. It's kind of funny. This tractor is really just an Oliver. Like that one and that one. It's been updated and painted silver. I think it was built in 1990 or 91. It's one of the last ones they built before they sold out to Agco. But it still has the old school Oliver double H shift pattern. This goes way back to the 1950s. It does have a park position, which I think is kind of new. And then it has the over-under direct. That's standard for the, I believe that started with the 55 series sometime in the late 1960s. So pretty good longevity on that layout. Anyway, he says that the voltage goes too high when you first start it up, like 16 volts. So let's fire it up here real quick and just see what it does. This is an 8.3 Cummins diesel engine. Pretty much impossible to kill. Let's see. Clutch. Looks okay to me. It's getting a little high. Okay, let's put an actual voltmeter on it and see what it says. I would guess the gauge is just a little off. Look at that. It even has the Oliver key. Anyway, I don't think that's anything to worry about. 14.5 is in the normal range for an alternator. 13.5, 14.5, somewhere in there. Looks like the gauge maybe reads a little bit high. Nothing to be concerned about. He can relax in his nice, comfortable air ride seat. We're done. This is a sweet 1998 Toyota 4Runner. It's in fantastic condition. I don't know where he got it, but it ain't from around here. Anyway, it will not crank. And the story goes, he tried to start it. He heard a popping sound, and then he had nothing. He tried to jump the starter, and then still had nothing, and he thinks he might have knocked out some other stuff. So I don't know what he did exactly, but well, the only real problem I see is this 40 amp J-case fuse is blown. It powers the starter solenoid through the starter relay. But the relay itself is working. I can hear it clicking, and all the other fuses here are fine. So, yeah, it takes a pretty good whack to blow a 40 amp fuse. I don't know what's going on there. But let's see if we can figure it out. So the problem's got to be somewhere between here and the fuse. So let's just take a look here. Start a relay out. So if we go from ground, nothing, 1 kilo ohm, 0 ohms. So that should be connected right to the solenoid on the starter. I would think it would be at least a couple ohms. You know, 4 or 8 maybe. It is 0. So I'm betting our short's got to be somewhere on the path between that relay and the starter. Let's get a look on the bottom side. This starter is not fun to get to. I don't know, it's a pretty short run. Just goes right from the fuse box / the battery across the front of the engine and then right up to the starter. I don't see any obvious problems. There's no chewed through wires or anything. Looks like it's pretty well loomed up. Well, let's unplug the starter and see if we can jump it. There we go. Come on. All right, I don't know if you guys can see what I'm doing, but I'm just checking continuity between that guy and ground. I don't appear to have any. Yeah, I don't think that wire is shorted. So, does that mean the solenoid is shorted some way? It'd be kind of an odd failure. I got hooked up to the starter, and I was measuring about 5 ohms, which doesn't seem crazy. That should be, what, just over 2 amps? Not enough to blow a 40 amp fuse. Anyway, I hooked up a remote start switch. No, I didn't. Hang on, I'll hook up a remote start switch. Alright, let's just see if it'll crank or melt my wire or what. There we go. Okay, so looks like the starter is good and this section of wire is good. Well, I couldn't find any problems, so I called the customer and he kind of walked me through what happened. It sounds like the 40 amp fuse, they blew that trying to jump the starter, so I think that was a red herring. I put a new one in, I turned the key, and you saw it started right up. Nothing wrong. He said the problem they were having was this little 7.5 amp start fuse would blow every time they would switch the key on. It's not doing it now, so I can't fix it if it's not broken. That is this 7.5 amp start fuse, and that circuit goes everywhere. There's 2 feeds to the ECM and a neutral safety switch. So I'm pretty sure it goes from here in the fuse box, along the fender, through the firewall, under the dash, to the ECM, back through the firewall, to the back of the engine, under the intake, across the valve cover, down along the frame, over top of the transmission, to the neutral safety switch, and then all the way back to the fuse box, to the start relay. There appears to maybe be one connector in that circuit, but that's not a whole lot of isolation. And there are a lot of places where that thing could have potentially, rubbed or shorted to ground. If we can't duplicate it, I don't have any idea how we would ever fix it. I don't know if anybody out there knows of a common problem with these, a spot where the wires rub or something, let me know. But I don't see any problems now. Toyota's usually extremely good about wire routing and looms and protection. They don't have a lot of problems with wiring. All right, thanks for watching. I'm sorry it's not much of a video. It's what I had to work with this week. Hopefully we'll be back on to something a little more juicy next week. All right, hot stuff. Show us how it's done. You didn't succeed. Wah, wah, wah.